Welcome to the Every Day is a New Day podcast and live show, the inspirational show about moving forward and choosing to be more of you, transmuting the self-doubt and stepping into courageously aligned confidence in who you uniquely are. My name is Kim O'Neill. I'm a twice certified transformational confidence coach, Reiki master, best-selling author, and former crime analyst who now helps empathic, heart-centered individuals shatter the noise of self-doubt, find clarity on what self-love really looks like, and the courage to be peacefully grounded in who you've always known you are, from the inside out. Join me for the live shows on Facebook and YouTube, and visit KimO'NeillCoaching.com for more info. Let's get to it. Hey y'all, before we get into today's interview, I want to give you a heads up. Today's awesome guest is Justin Schenck, host of the top-ranked podcast, Growth Now Movement. And at the time of our interview, he was planning to host his second live event, Growth Now Movement Live, in May 2020 in Reading, Pennsylvania. However, with the onset of the coronavirus and all the restrictions it's imposed on in-person live events, he has already announced that his event has been postponed for fall 2020. So if you'd like to follow up on that to get the exact date moving forward, go ahead and check out gnmlive.com for more info. gnmlive.com for more info. Now, on with our interview. With that said, I'm really excited for today's guest. It's his second time being on the Every Day is a New Day show. Welcome back, Justin Schenck.
Kim, thank you so much. Look, here's the thing. Last time I was on your show, we figured out it was like a year and a half ago, something like that. We broke records, right? So it was like the most viewed on Facebook. Let's see if we can do that again. I don't know if anybody's broken it. I'm sure they have, because it's been so much, but let's see if we can do it again.
I love it. I love that you just said that too. That was so awesome. Yeah, let's do it again. You are an incredible manifester. We're going to be talking about some of what you've created just in the last year for yourself, but also for others. You're on a movement right now. So before we get into that, though, for everyone who may just be meeting Justin Schenck for the very first time, I'm going to go ahead and read a little bit about you so they can get familiar with you. And so Justin Schenck is the host of the top-rated podcast, The Growth Now Movement, and founder of Growth Now LLC, which is a full-service podcast production and coaching company. He has been named a top 8 podcaster to follow by Inc. magazine and chosen as an icon of influence in the new media space. What started out as something fun to do in order to connect with top influencers and help one or two people along their journey has grown to become a podcast that is currently getting played in over 100 countries every single week and ranked in the top 15% in the world. Justin now works with some of the world's elite entrepreneurs and business owners like Fabio Viviani, Centrella, Cindy Eckert, and that is just scratching the surface. He's also the host and creator of one of the most exciting live events for entrepreneurs and forward thinkers, Growth Now Movement Live. Justin.
I just snorted. That's so many words. Like, I need to cut that in half.
You know what? And I tend to do that for some of my guests, but yours is actually so good. So kudos on such a great bio. That was really good.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been quite the journey for sure. And I feel humbled and blessed to even say that is my bio. Whenever I get introduced somewhere to speak or on a podcast, I'm like, that's not me. That's so weird. But just really, really, I feel blessed that this is my life now. It's kind of crazy.
Well, so I love that you acknowledge that, because I think that is a typical response of like, you hear something about yourself. You're like, I know I've done that, but like, what? That's not me. And so, as you are in this space of constantly evolving and deepening your own understanding of what it means to move forward, to have a growth mindset, all of that, you're continuing to evolve. And so, we interviewed about a year and a half ago, but who is Justin Schenck today? Beyond all the accomplishments, who is Justin Schenck?
Yeah, I think I'm just a person who, again, I live in this constant state of growth, and that's by choice, right? And so what I say a lot is I try and grow 1% every single day. So I literally look at it as incremental wins that I can create for myself, for my relationships, for my business, whatever the case may be. I really focus on just that small incremental steps every single day. So that creates the evolution, right? I mean, it's been a year and a half since you and I spoke. I mean, 1% every day over a year and a half, there's going to be those big leaps, right? Those big leaps forward into who I want to become. Because look, here's what I figured out. And through all the conversations I've had with amazing people on my podcast, the friends that I have that are millionaires, billionaires, whatever you want to call them, you know, I realized that if your goal is $1 million, kudos to you. But I promise you, when you get to the million, you're just going to want 10. So you better find a way to be happy in those small little steps in your life, because otherwise you're not going to be fulfilled. And being happy and being fulfilled in everything that you're doing is all that matters to me. And so I realized that if I go to sleep and I say I did one good thing today, or I did one thing that pushed me a little bit further to my big vision and my big goal, then I win. And that's all that I really care about. And from there, I mean, obviously the rest follows, whether it be, the money or connection or whatever. We just have to continuously improve.
I love that. So, okay, the first thing coming to mind for me is that only growing 1% a day. It sounds so awesome because it's like, that's simple. I can do that, right? We can all just do 1% a day. And yet I think we all know we have the tendency to say, I'm going to leap right now for that $10 million. And so how do you, I think that's kind of the maybe audio oxymoron or whatever about it. This sounds so simple. And yet we tend to actually default to the other thing, the harder challenge. So yeah. How do you identify what that 1% is? How do you just focus on that and keep doing that versus getting tripped up by that huge, massive thing?
Yeah, that's actually a really, really good question. I think for me is because of where I came from and how I was raised, and we talked about that the last time I was on your show. I think that I'm humbled by the idea that I've even accomplished what I've accomplished now. And so these big, huge goals are like, wow, that could be attainable. But I've never lived in the world where I feel super brash or arrogant that I feel like I can achieve that overnight. So for me to measure the 1% is simple. Like all I have to do is go, what's the one thing I did to accomplish today to make me get further to the big goal? My big goal, and we talked about this a little bit last time we spoke, is Growth Not Movement Live is really my passion. It's really my labor of love. It's a lot of work for little return. And anybody who's ever done a live event, they know that for a fact. I don't sell from the stage. There's no any of that stuff. But the reality is, like, I want to fill an arena one day of people who are looking to better their life, who are looking to become, richer individuals, richer employees, richer entrepreneurs, whatever the case may be. But I also know that's not going to happen overnight. Right. And so how do I do that? And then I break that down a little bit further and I say, cool, the first year my goal was 150. This year the goal is 300. I want to double it in size every single year, because I also know I can't go from 150 to 6,000. That's going to take time. And so how do I set realistic expectations, but they all build on one another? The big jump, I think a lot of people say, I have this huge, massive goal. I want to go after it. And I think they say it because it's easier for them to go, yeah, I failed that one. That's okay. Like, it's almost easier to accept your failure when they're big than accepting your failure when they're small.
Ooh, that's good.
I beat myself up all the time. I mean, ask my girlfriend. I'm my toughest critic. But, when I look at all these things, like if I don't grow 1% every single day, I have a hard time sleeping at night. So that's why I really focus on these small incremental goals, because they're number one, they're attainable. Number two, I feel good at the end of every single day. And when I wake up the next day, I know where I'm going next.
So how does it start? Do you start by identifying the bigger goal and then break it down into those bite-sized chunks?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really, really big on visualization. So I visualize the big goal. Like, I know what it's going to feel like that day I fill the arena. I know the type of people that are going to be there. I know the speakers I want there. I know the music that's going to be playing. I know all these things already. I know what it's going to smell like. I know that sounds really weird and probably gross because of 6,000 people in a room. It smells really bad, but I know what it smells like, right? And so I visualize it every single day, but I also visualize those small things too. And so, like, I knew what the 150 looked like. I knew I wanted Fabio Viviani to speak at my event last year. I knew I wanted the speakers I have this year, like Justin Wren, speaking at my event. And so when you get that clear vision, it makes it really, really easy to kind of take that next step. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. And I love that you brought that up, because I know that you're big on visualization and you talk about that a lot. And something that has been coming up a lot, I would say from last year and into this year, is really this, it's not a concept, but I'll just say concept for lack of a better word. This concept of embodying also what it is that we want to accomplish, right? It's not so much about achieving what you want. It's more about achieving who you are, right? Yeah. What you are is what you achieve, kind of thing. And so what are your thoughts about that? Because I know that when you're in that space of aligning your visions and getting clear on who you are, that the more momentum you develop and the more you start to evolve and grow, it can actually start to feel very uncomfortable. And it's like the quicker we evolve, the potential for feeling more uncomfortable with that growth can, to some degree, maybe even slow us down. And do you have any
Yeah.
thoughts to share on that?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think more than anything, to talk to the embodiment thing, I think that you can't reach the goals without becoming the person you need to become to reach them first, right? So like if you take this into consideration with like relationships, if you want a partner who's understanding, who listens, who communicates, who will have deep conversations, who does this, this, and this, you better become that first because they're only going to reciprocate what you're giving them, right? And so that's like life. So if you want to become a millionaire, do a live event, become a top ranked podcaster, do all these things, you have to become the person that you have to become the person that deserves that. Right.
Right.
And so for me, like I started podcasting almost 4 years ago, which is insane. But I started podcasting almost 4 years ago and I was really, really bad. And I wouldn't say until about 6 months ago, I started saying I'm a good interviewer. And it took me that amount of time to say to myself, I'm a good interviewer. But every single day I work towards embodying that I feel like I deserve these conversations. Right. And so it was always my goal. And I say this a lot, but like in 2017, I had set a goal and I said, by the end of this year, I want to feel like I belong in these conversations that I'm having. I want to feel like I belong having these great names that I've had on the podcast. I want to feel that way. And by the end of 2017, I was rewarded with Inc. Magazine's top 8 podcasts to follow and like all these things. And I was like, wow, like here's the accolade to say I belong. 2018, I said, I want to be at this table. I want to be at the table with these people. I started sharing Airbnbs with some people that I really admire, like Nick Santanastasso and Justin Wren, going to these events and being invited to speak at these events. And I was at the table. In 2019, I set the table when I did my live event. And now I want to be asked to be at other people's tables. And so I constantly staying on the same type of goal setting. But at the same time, it's evolving because you reach that goal, you've embodied that person, you've become the person that deserves that. Now let's get a little uncomfortable and embody the next phase of that. And I've gotten very, very comfortable being uncomfortable. Like I speak all over the country and I have nerves from head to toe before I walk on stage every single time.
I wanted to ask you about that next. Does the experience of getting uncomfortable with your own growth and evolution ever get to a space where it actually feels comfortable?
Yes. It's more uncomfortable for me not to be working towards something than not.
Okay. And I realize I just essentially asked you the question you already answered, but thank you for adding another layer to that answer. Okay. So, okay, awesome. So I don't typically put together a whole bunch of questions for guests unless it just feels like it feels right. And it totally did. So with Justin, I have like this list of questions that I'm pulling from today. And thanks for just rolling with it, Justin. I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, of course. I love this.
So let's just talk a little bit more about your event, Growth Now Movement Live. I mean, so here you were envisioning this large event. Like you said, it's not necessarily that you even get quite the return on it. This is a huge thing you do for other people. What was that like for you? I mean, knowing that just 4 years ago you started podcasting and now you help others, but now you're also taking your podcast and just like creating this huge movement for other people. Like, what was that like to really have that come to life for you?
Yeah, it was crazy. I look at what had happened and I'll kind of go back a little bit. So I had this podcast and I was connecting with these incredible people, becoming friends with a lot of them. A lot of them were becoming my mentors and with podcasting, you can literally sit down with anybody for an hour and pick their brain and you're literally learning from these people that charge $10,000-$15,000 a year or even an hour to talk to them and you get that opportunity. And I said, how do I take what I've gotten from these individuals and the learning that I've done and put it into an event? And how do I take Growth Now movement and truly add that movement part of it? And that was really the live event. It's the idea of like, it's affordable, it's approachable. The speakers interact with the guests. It's not like they're in some green room the whole entire time and you can't talk to them. And so I wanted to give the people, these individuals who didn't get lucky and get Inc. Magazine and all these other things, the same opportunity to learn and grow. And so that was the visualization of it. But then I wanted to make it fun, and I wanted to be truly like a rock concert. So I had all this visualization process, right? I had the music, and I've got dancers dancing the speakers down to the stage, and all these things. And I remember, and I'll never forget this moment, that unfortunately it's not caught on camera because the guys who were supposed to videotape it didn't properly, and it all went away, which is insane. That's a whole nother story. But I walked out. I kind of ran out onto the stage from the back, and the room was so insanely loud
Okay.
that I was kind of overwhelmed with this idea that I was like, whoa, these people are here to be a part of what I've built. And I didn't realize that until I walked out on the stage and I heard how loud it was. It was one of the loudest things I've ever heard. And I was like, there's only 150 people here. And I was like, what is happening? I actually have chills right now talking about it. Like, I don't know if you can see that.
I'm feeling it though.
But it was the realization that if I work really hard towards my purpose and the things that are fully in line with what I believe my message is, it will all come together, and the people that are supposed to be there will be there, and everything else will fall in line. And I'm just ready to impact more lives next year. And I hope that feeling never goes away. And I'll tell you, the second that feeling goes away, I won't do it anymore, because it's just this crazy. I don't even want to say adrenaline rush. It's like this deep level of emotion that I can't even explain, because I can't even imagine those people showing up and wanting to be a part of this thing that I built, and they did, and it was just crazy.
Well, and this year it's going to be even in a larger venue, correct?
Yeah. So I moved it out of it's a whole thing. I moved out of a hotel. It's somewhere else now. It's actually at a church, like one of those new churches with like the lights and the sounds and all that stuff. So it'll double it in size. So I'm going from a room that fit 150 people to 300 people this year.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What was the most surprising thing you learned about yourself after seeing, oh my gosh, I did this?
Whoa, that's a really good question. I don't, that's really, really tough for me to answer, to be honest with you. I think more than anything, I think I learned for myself something that I was talking about before I truly believed it, which is we all have this message that people need to hear. And we're all put on this earth to impact at least one life. And the louder we can be with our message done in the right way. I want to also preface it that way. But the louder we can be with our message and with the right purpose behind it, then people will follow. And I think it was the nod to like, okay, you're headed in the right direction. Like you're truly doing the things you're supposed to be doing.
Did you happen to notice a deeper sense of inner peace?
No.
Okay.
I wish the answer was yes. I just think for me, I live in this world of always being happy but never satisfied.
Okay.
And so I'm extremely happy every single day. There's not much that's don't get me wrong, I have bad days, but I'm always happy. But for me, I'm never satisfied. I want to continue to impact more lives, until the day I die. I don't think I'll ever be satisfied with that picture.
I can totally understand that. Thank you for being open to just answering that.
Yeah.
Honestly, I just want to remind our live audience today, if you are with us live and you have questions for Justin, whether it be about growth, moving forward, visualization, GNM live, feel free to go ahead and put those down in the chat, and we'd be happy to connect with you and respond to you while we're here. So Justin, one of the things, and I'm pretty certain I acknowledged this in our first interview, but I'm going to acknowledge it again because this is one of the things that really truly pops for me with you is the very first time I saw you speak, it was just so crystal clear how authentic and down to earth you are. And you are like a magnet for that because not everyone has that quality. And it's seriously, it's so wonderful. And so I really want to talk to you about authenticity and what your thoughts are on how authenticity plays a role in growth and moving forward.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much for saying that. That really means the world to me. But I think for me, and I'll tell you a story of something that happened in my life. When I changed high schools after my sophomore year of high school, because my dad went to jail. And when I changed high schools, I would lie to people, and I lived with my aunt and uncle for a while until my mom was able to find a place where I moved high schools to. And I lived with my aunt and uncle for a while, and I remember kids saying to me, why'd you move here? Why are you living with your aunt and uncle? And I just say, oh, my mom is looking for a job up here to be closer to her family, and I lied, and it was a lie of things that were happening in my life. And then there was a moment. Fast forward a number of years, I was actually with my girlfriend at the time and her parents out to dinner, and her parents said, "You talk about your mom a lot. Why don't you talk about your dad?" And I said, "Oh, I don't talk about my dad because the only way I can see him right now is during visiting hours." And this girl that I was dating grabbed my leg, and in that moment, I knew the relationship was over, but I also felt this great relief off of my shoulders because I no longer had to live a lie. And I realized that being authentic in everything that we do is all that matters. Because I promise you that if you're at the end of your life and you look back and you went, I wasn't even myself. This
Right.
whole entire time, I was not even who I was meant to be and who I was supposed to be. You're going to regret that. And so when I decided that I was no longer going to lie about my past, I was going to embrace my past. I was going to be extremely authentic in that, in the way I approach people about it, in the way I talk about it. Um, Growth tended to follow afterwards because it puts you in uncomfortable positions. Like being open and honest about the things you went through and who you are will put you into positions that make you uncomfortable, but it will also put you in the right rooms with the right people that will get you to the next level.
So I've heard you share that story before, but it's still just as powerful. And I love that there's that added, I'm gonna call it a gift that, it may, was it scary for you to say, I don't get to see my dad unless he's, at visiting hours? Was that scary at all?
I think I just got to a point where it just kind of fell out of my face because I kind
Okay.
of made it a joke in the way that I said it. So I didn't think about it until post. Like it was like one of those like I said
Uh-oh.
it and then I felt this weight and I was like, oh, I need to just be honest because who cares? Like
Oh,
if they aren't going to accept me for who I am, then why do I care?
oh, that's so good. Okay, so on this moving in this direction of authenticity. I know that for the last few years, I myself have seen this kind of conversation going around about, if you're an entrepreneur or anyone who's putting yourself out there publicly, and you're going through a rough time, to show your audience that. And this has been framed as, being authentic. I love that you're smiling. Okay, this is and this is typically talked about in the context of, being more authentic. And I remember when I first heard that, I was confused, and I, was doing myself though to do a good job. And I attempted that. And so I put myself out there authentically, showing my wounds, and it completely backfired on me. And I basically did it the wrong way, the wrong way that first time around. And so I've since learned from that. And I've also found out that I'm not the only one that didn't quite understand that. And has gotten tripped up by that. And so I want to get your take on it, but because I consider you to be someone who has a good understanding about authenticity. And what are your thoughts about how and when to be authentic publicly about your own growth process?
Yeah. So first, I would say that your wounds are there to teach you a lesson. Your scars are there to teach other people a lesson. And scars only happen after you heal.
So good.
And there's so many times that I see people on their Instagram stories crying about what they're going through right now, and I truly feel bad for them, and I want to help them.
Yeah.
But they're trying to make it a teaching point, but they haven't learned what makes it a teaching point yet.
Oh, that's so good. If I could like this, I would so like this right now.
So if people are watching, I don't know if people are like it. But honestly, like you, we have to heal the wounds that we're receiving, and we're all meant to receive the wounds that we do receive. There's a
Yeah.
reason. A good friend of mine, Ed Milet, says um, he says life is happening for us, not to us, right? And so we then have to realize, why are these wounds happening? How can I truly heal them? How can I work through them, so that I can then make this a lesson for others? I share this story pretty often as well. Like after my mom passed away, I went on a 3-month bender where I was blackout drunk 6 nights a week, and I was numbing pain, and I had a scar. Now I wasn't talking about it publicly, but there was a day where I had to sit in my pain and truly heal. And then I did the work, and I didn't use this as a focal point until about 2 months after that, when I felt like I then said, okay, I need to talk about this. And you talk about this openly because my wound started to heal and the scar started to form. And then I said, okay, let me use this as a talking point. And so those were the kinds of things that I hope that I can kind of push onto other people. Something I said to somebody the other day, I'm also a growth coach, so I help people kind of grow their brands and everything like that. Is because I've done the work to grow my brand, but I wouldn't have been a growth coach to help people grow their brands if I didn't know how to do it myself. I think
Yes.
being a coach is a result of life that you live, not something you go out and just buy. And I see that all the time, and that goes along with the being authentic and the open scars versus the wounds, or what are the wounds and scars. Whatever I said earlier.
Yeah.
By the way, that should be on a quote card.
It
I like that
totally. I'm going to create my own. I'll quote you, of course. But yes, I agree. And on that note, so I was listening to one of your recent episodes on Growth Now Movement, and you had a brilliant quote. You mentioned that, as a coach, your clients are paying for your failures.
Mm.
That was so good. I'm going to repeat it again. As a coach, you actually said they're paying you for your failures. That's what you said. And anyway, so just want to tag that in there because, it's when you're still in that process of healing, that's not necessarily the time to go and be authentic and be showing your open wound. But like you said, once you've healed, you've got the scar. Now you can share it from a different place. I love that.
Yeah. And was that during the abundance mindset versus scarcity mindset? Maybe I don't remember when I said
it was
maybe I did.
The most recent episode, and I forget the person's name, so I don't want to give a wrong name.
Oh, Namaste Janae.
Yes, that was it.
Yeah, she's amazing. She'll be at my event actually as a movement maker, people. So come and hang out with her. But honestly, when I look at that, I go, okay, cool, that makes sense, right? So let's just take away the personal pain. Let's take all that out of the situation, and we just talk about business. I'm going to hire a coach who's been through it, who's failed, who's learned the lessons, and then figured out how to do it versus hiring somebody who's never done it, which I see that all the time. And it's very, very frustrating. And there's all these fake coaches out there helping people do things they've never done. And it's very, very frustrating not because that person's now making a living doing that. It's frustrating because they're duping people, right? And so I think that people who are in a position where they're going through pain in their business, in their life, whatever, and they may be broke, they may be whatever, take whatever pennies you have left and invest it into something. Invest it into a coach, into a mastermind, into a live event that will get you in the room with the right people that'll fast forward this track of pain, because we've all been through it in business, right? So like fast forward that track of pain to get to the end goal quicker. That's the point of a coach. Don't hire people who haven't been through the pain.
Love it, love it, love it. Okay, so just on this topic of pain and being authentic, not everyone who may be with us today is necessarily a coach or someone who feels like they're putting themselves out there in the public eye, and that's totally fine because this conversation's for you too. And so when you're someone who's in that space of going through your stuff, and whether or not you realize that that's a growth moment, likely there's a lot of pain, a lot of darkness, there can be some tears. And I love that you started talking about doing the work. The way I think about doing the work is allowing yourself to be honest with yourself, go inward and start to heal that. And one of the things that's just coming up, and I want to really get your thoughts on, are what are your thoughts about men and tears? Men going through their own emotional inner growth process and learning how to be vulnerable and authentic and heal. What are your thoughts about that?
I think it's necessary. I think it's necessary for somebody to cry. I think it's natural. Like we're taught as men that, and I was lucky enough that I wasn't taught this, but a lot of men are taught that you shouldn't cry. Stiffen up that upper lip, toughen up, don't rub it, do all those things. But the truth is, like, we have to feel the pain. Now the difference is that you shouldn't be crying over spilled milk. Like there are certain things that you just push through. But tears are healing, in my opinion. When you cry, you're letting out emotion. One of the greatest things I ever heard, I had a great spiritual mentor of mine, Rhonda Smith, said, you have every right to be angry as you do to be happy. And that also falls in line with being sad and all the other things. Like we're just taught we should all be happy all the time, and that's what we should be. Like we're given permission to be happy. Why aren't we given permission to be all the other things?
Right.
I think that there's a time and place for the tears. I think that we shouldn't cry over everything, but I cry. Like certainly, I cry plenty. And it's, and it's times of pain and sadness and tears come out. But we also have to understand what those tears are teaching us. And we have to grow from that.
That's another quotable. We have to understand what those tears are teaching us. Sounds good. And Rhonda's going to be coming on the show in the near future.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's incredible. She's incredible.
So something I've noticed, and I'm going to ask because I don't know your thoughts on this, but something I've noticed is I get the sense that you're taking on a little bit more of a spiritual approach to what you're doing these days. Does that ring true for you?
I think that I always have.
Okay.
I've learned more about it, so I can talk more about it now. And so as I go through this process where I am meditating more and I'm going to guided meditations, and my girlfriend is going through yoga teacher training, and she's like a crystal healer person and all these things, it puts me in a position where I feel a little bit more comfortable talking about it. Okay. But I've always been tapped into that in some way, shape, or form. We can get technical. I've been an empath my whole life, and I've been aware of it for a very long time. But that's a journey too. But going back to the scars and the wounds, right? Like figuring that stuff out and navigating that, there's wounds in that process. I've just gotten better at talking about it. I try my best to live in that Zen, happy place. It doesn't always work. But I'm certainly navigating it. But I think we're all just navigating everything.
Okay. We talk about, what does having a positive outlook mean to you?
I think for me, it's understanding that we have control over 90% of what happens to us in our life, or how we react to what happens to us in our life. Things are going to happen. Like things are going to happen, bad, good, indifferent, as we move through this life. But what matters is how we react to it, and that's really where that, I forget the word you used, but that's. That is where, when I live in those types of thought processes of knowing that I have complete control over everything.
Positive outlook.
That's how I can have a positive outlook on everything. Because look, bad things are going to, thank you for reminding me. I'm like, settling is not the word she used.
I'm like, what word?
But this is live, folks. But the positive outlook thing, knowing that I have complete control over everything, is my positive outlook, because bad things can happen. I can remain positive because I can continue to control things and move them in the right direction.
It sounds like you're remembering your own power. You're remembering I have a choice in what I do, and I know who I am. I'm capable of shifting things in a different direction.
I remember that more than whatever word you just said before.
Positive outlook. Okay.
Yeah,
okay. Awesome. Okay. So you work with a lot of podcasters. You have a full-blown podcasting company. And so what do you wish a lot of new podcasters knew?
I think the main thing is realistic expectations.
Okay.
Like people think that they're going to release a podcast and thousands of downloads and tens of thousands of downloads are going to stream through their numbers. And that's just not the case, especially now. I think last year alone, something like 350,000 new podcasts launched. And So how do you rise above that noise? I think 9 times out of 10 now, if you're going to launch a podcast, it's really a branch of marketing to what you're building beyond everything else. It's just like social media or other things you might bring into your business. Very rarely is it going to be your whole everything. So I think the realistic expectation is number one. If you want tactical things, launching with multiple episodes and stuff like that. But I think going into it with realistic expectations, number one, and number two, having your audience in mind versus trying to expand your audience. And if you serve the audience that you have already, that'll organically expand because your audience will then tell other people about it.
It seems like so genius. Having your audience in mind versus trying to expand your audience, because one will come from the other.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really good. Okay. What are you most excited about for this next GNM Live?
All of it. Just all of it. The people that I know that are buying tickets and I see it come through and they message me and say how excited they are to be there and be a part of it. And, they've listened to the podcast and we've had conversations and I get to see them in person. And that, I mean, obviously the amazing speaker lineup who I get to call friends to hang out with them for a couple days. Look, the end of the day is the event is truly a day and a half long rock concert. And it's a ton of fun. And we've got amazing entertainers coming in from LA, Katrina Stone and Ben Hurd. And they both have millions and millions of streams on Spotify, and they're absolutely incredible. But the impact that it makes beyond that too, like the event itself, I get chills thinking about that day. But the impact that it makes beyond that from the first year has been amazing, and I can't wait to see what it does with double the amount of people. Just the connections, the business that grew from it, the friendships that have grown. A girl posted about saying like last year she came to the event and she went to 6 events last year, and mine was my favorite or was her favorite because of all the connections she made and all the other things too. But she then in the comments tagged like 25 people that she still talks to from my event. And there were only 150 people there. Like it's truly a family. It's truly, truly a family of people. And I can't wait to see what it does after this year.
So tell everyone what the dates are for this year.
Yeah, so it's May. The event itself is May 15 and 16. And then for the mastery level, there's a half-day mastermind on the 17th. Okay. But the main event's 15 and 16. We actually just announced today, a couple hours ago, I went live with Anthony Trucks, who's one of the speakers, former NFL player, one of the top keynote speakers in the world, charges $25,000 a keynote, just closed out Brendan Bouchard's influencer event. If people buy tickets this week, they get a bonus 1-hour workshop with him before the event kicks off that Friday on the 15th, which is priceless. Absolutely priceless. Sorry, somebody just messaged me and I didn't know what it said. That was rude. But like, it's absolutely priceless for people just to buy this week and get that on top of everything else. Yeah, it's going to be amazing. So gnmlive.com is where they go to buy the tickets. They can see the full speaker lineup. We actually have one more surprise announcement coming up on Tuesday, which I'm super excited about. Yeah, just a great group of people that I hope people can come and be a part of it.
Okay, so at the time of this recording, you've already announced all of the speakers, correct? Or all but maybe one that you might have. Okay, yeah. So would you like to go ahead and just share all of those that are already known? So
yes. Yeah. So we have Anthony Trucks, who I just mentioned, Natalie Jill, who's a top 5 fitness influencer on the internet, 2.5 million followers across the board. She's also a high performance coach. Brooks Holland, who is actually her husband as well, which I love the fact that I have a husband and wife combo. He's also a high performance coach. By the way, his episode came out on my show, and the response was insane. I had never seen anything, so I'm really glad that he's going to be there. Justin Wren, who's a Bellator MMA fighter, also a TEDx speaker and author, who's been on Rogan's podcast 8 times. Susie Miller, who's an elite relationship coach. Andre Young, who's a leadership coach. And Josh York, which is absolutely crazy that I'm mentioning him last, because just yesterday he was on the Gary Vee show. So wow. Just absolutely mind-blowing. And then on top of that, we have 15 movement makers. I won't list them all for people. They can go to gnmlive.com to see all of them. But just really, really excited to have that powerhouse lineup. Like, honestly, I just said when I was talking with Anthony on the live with Instagram, I believe this speaker lineup rivals any event like this in the country. And it's also the only event that I've seen like this, period, in the Northeast. So I'm just really, really excited to be able to put it together.
I think that's really cool that you're committed to holding this event in your hometown of Reading, PA. So there is something like this local to everyone who's over there.
Yeah, it makes it harder logistically. But, I think people would have looked at me when I was 16 and said, "You've got no shot, kid." And I think people look at a place like Reading and they say, "You've got no shot." And I want to prove them wrong, just like I did about my life. And I know that sounds a little arrogant, but it means so much to me to say it doesn't matter where you live and it doesn't matter what platform you have or whatever. You can build whatever you want. And it was funny. I have a cover article coming out of me on Business Weekly, which is in our local newspaper. Business Weekly apparently is a national thing too. Not this one.
I was going to say, yeah, okay.
and this woman was interviewing me, and I had said something similar to that. And she's like, "Why Reading?" And I had said something, and she said, "So the point of this is to show people how great Reading is." And I said, "No, the point of this is to show people how great they are on the inside. Because when you realize how great you are on the inside, you see the beauty and greatness in everything and everywhere around you." And I said that just almost unconsciously. It came out.
Nice.
And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's what all of this is." Like everything that I've built is that. Like it doesn't matter what other people think of you. What matters is what you think of yourself. And then you're going to see the beauty in everything around you.
Right. Well, and I also take away that you're showing people what's possible. It doesn't matter where you hold it. If there's these preconceived notions about a location or a person or whatever, and look what's still possible. Like look how much growth. What's another word? Look how much can flourish in a place when someone believes in it, puts the action, holds the vision for it, and says, we're doing this. It's not about this location isn't good, so I'm going to go somewhere else. It's about what do I want? And okay, I'm going to choose to do it here. And you make it happen. And it's beautiful. It's awesome.
Yeah. And people are coming from 17 states in Canada as of right now to the event. And Reading is a town with no airport. And the reason I say this is not to toot my own horn. The reason I say this is that if you have a dream to do something like this, just go do it.
So inspiring. Last week I had the honor of being able to do a live podcast with a musician friend of mine, and then I spoke to his music class, and this question kind of came up about, how did you get to hosting a podcast? And it's interesting. I told people, well, I used to like to hear other people's stories of, how did they get to where they are, and to learn from people and be inspired and fill my mind with hope and ideas, because I didn't know how to do certain things either. And one of the common threads I noticed is that, of course, everyone had a story of here's where I was and now here's where I am today. And there were lots of things that happened in the middle there, but pretty much everyone's story was different. And that's the one thing, is we may think that there's some sort of formula, and okay, I'm going to learn from other people to learn the formula. And one of the key, maybe even hidden underlying pieces or elements of that formula is that no two stories are the same. And so that's where it's so important to know who you are and really realize you have the ability to take action on your vision and make things happen. So you're doing a great job of that. And it's,
thank you.
Yeah. You kind of already answered this, but maybe there's more to it. So if you had to choose no, you already answered this. Should I ask it?
Yeah, if you want. Yeah, go ahead.
What's your mission through holding the Growth Now movement live? I should kind of check that question.
But no, honestly, it's really to let people know that they have the same opportunities as everybody else, no matter where they come from. It's to let people know that to connect with the right people, they can continue to grow into the person they want to be. It's to inspire, it's to teach, it's to do all of those things.
Yeah.
And I think like anything else, it's evolving. Like this year will be different than last year on purpose. And I'm sure the next year will be different and exciting and all the other things, right? But at the same time, I'm fully focused on this year and the impact it's going to make. And if anybody, like this event's really for entrepreneurs, influencers, forward thinkers, people looking to level up in all areas of their life. That's why I bring in people that are relationship experts, health experts, leadership experts, business experts. Like I do that on purpose. And the one more thing I'll do, that's the last thing I'll say about it. I don't tell people when the speakers are speaking.
Okay.
So you get there and yes, you know when the speaker times are, but you don't know who the speaker is. And the reason I do that is I'll backtrack really quick. And I told this at my little opening blurb at my event last year. I said, I went to an event and they did this. And one of the speakers was a guy named Fabio Viviani. And I was like, who the heck cares about a chef? I don't care. I didn't know who he was. And he spoke and he blew me away. And I turned to my friend and I said, I'm going to be friends with that guy. My friend was like, yeah, whatever. So a year and a half after that, Fabio Viviani keynoted my event last year. And I'm now friends with him. But the point is, you don't know what message you need to hear sometimes.
Right.
And so I don't ever want somebody to leave a room because they go, oh, I don't need that. Because 9 times out of 10, when you're saying I don't need that, you're running from something and you probably need that. So you never know. So I kind of hide that from people on purpose. And it makes it super exciting too when they come out and everybody goes crazy. It's cool.
Awesome. Justin, thank you so much for being here today. You've answered so much. Is there anything that I haven't asked you or you haven't already shared that you would like people to know?
No, this was great. Yeah, this was phenomenal. I would love for people to, check out my podcast, Growth Now Movement. Come to the event, especially if they're close. I don't want to make it hard for people. But gnmlive.com is the place to go for tickets. I would love to see your audience there and hopefully inspire them. I would love to see you there as well.
You know?
And so we'll find a way to get you there. But yeah, I'm just excited to connect with people there.
Awesome. Well, Justin, thank you so much for being here today. It was wonderful reconnecting with you and really getting your authentic take on growth and moving forward. And I just want to say, you mentioned something earlier about maybe a perspective that you had being arrogant. And I just want to say, I don't see it being arrogant whatsoever. You were very clear on what you're doing and the purpose behind it. And, that speaks volumes. You set a really good example for people. So I just wanted to address that.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. This conversation's been phenomenal. You're really good at what you do. And thank you for having me on a second time and having this conversation. It's important for people to hear it. And I think the world needs to hear it, but thank you.
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate that. And thank you to everyone who has been here with us today. I hope you will go ahead and check out gnmlive.com and take a look at Justin's event coming up in May. What are the dates again?
15-16 May in Reading, Pennsylvania.
Awesome. And thank you to all of our live viewers. We've got a comment here from Robin. Hey.
What up, brother? He should be coming to the event too, by the way.
Awesome. Well, I hope you will remember that every day is a new day. Wherever you are today does not have to be where you are tomorrow. And how awesome is it that the successful top podcaster of the Growth Now movement and Growth Now Movement Live was even saying it's just 1% a day, 1% a day. And it may sound subtle and maybe even too simple, and yet it can lead to such leaps and bounds, such as 4 years ago, not doing any podcasting. And now all of a sudden you have your live event based off of that and creating lots of positive change in the world for others. So that's possible for you too, on whatever scale, whatever it is that you have a vision and a dream for. I hope you will always know that, to remember that there's always hope, that you are amazing in who you are. And I look forward to seeing you next time on the Every Day is a New Day show. Bye, everybody.
And that's today's show. So, what are you taking away? Let me know down in the comments wherever you listened or watched today's episode, and connect with me on Facebook on the Every Day is a New Day show and coaching page, or visit KimO'NeillCoaching.com for more info. Remember, every day is always a new day. Wherever you are today does not have to be where you are tomorrow. There is always hope, and you will always be amazing. I'll see you next time.